YouTube? I'm back with another review. Just Alright people, so we've got a little bit of a controversy on our hands with this one. This was the critically acclaimed film that had rave reviews coming out of Sundance Film Festival earlier this year. However, a couple months ago, its reputation was seriously tarnished by a rape allegation that was brought against actor-director Nate Parker. However, I am one of those people who is able to separate art from artist, so without further ado, here's my review for the new iteration of The Birth of a Nation.
You're waiting on us.
We will rise.
So in this movie that is not about different families in the Civil War, this version of The Birth of a Nation is both directed and starring Nate Parker, who portrays the infamous slave-turned-rebel Nat Turner, who at a young age was taught how to read the Bible after his masters caught him reading. He then becomes a preacher amongst his fellow slaves at the plantation, but when his master accepts a money offer to bring him around to other plantations in order to preach as a way of getting the other slaves in line, he begins to witness the true horror of slavery and begins his journey that ultimately culminates in one of the first and shortest slave rebellions in U.S. history. So a couple of things about the film before I get into the whole rape scandal. I thought it was an extremely well-made movie. Say what you will about his personal life, but Nate Parker is a damn good filmmaker, and it does show. His shots were fantastic. The story he told was, I thought, very well told, and he stole absolutely every single scene he was in. Unfortunately, I am one of those people who do not think that this particular movie needed to be made, especially after 12 Years a Slave rock cinemas. Slavery is a very touchy issue, and I understand that it's hard for a film that is primarily made by and starring African Americans to get a whole lot of awards if it doesn't contain this kind of source material, but come on. 12 Years a Slave was a goddamn masterpiece, and I'm not knocking this film. It was extremely well made, and it's also very apparent that Parker was passionate about the story, but I just don't think it needed to be made. The story of Nat Turner was ultimately so short-lived that it just ended up blending into the various different slave rebellions and escape attempts that occurred before the Civil War, and ultimately, with this kind of source material that's covered, ultimately, there's a line that needs to be drawn in the sand between how many of these movies need to be made. I mean, that's just my opinion. It's just that I don't think a slave movie should be made just so that it can get Oscar appeal, because that's what this felt like. Performances were pretty good all around. Parker was, of course, star of his movie. He did a fantastic job. And the other two stars, Armie Hammer and Aja Naomi King, were the ones that were also slated to get some awards recognition. They gave good performances. Armie Hammer, I gotta tell you, he's a guy who is very underrated as an actor. No one really knows who he is because he's not a big name, but he is a very tall dude, and his film credits include The Social Network and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and also J. Edgar. He also almost played Batman in George Miller's canceled Justice League Mortal. Dude's a good actor. I don't understand why he doesn't get more work. Unfortunately, now we do get to the rape scandal, which is awful because if it hadn't happened, this movie would absolutely be getting a ton of Oscar buzz. Now, the allegations specifically were that while he was in college back in 1999, Parker and his co-writer Jean McJohnny Celestine were accused of date raping a fellow Penn State student, and while Parker was not convicted, Celestine was acquitted on accounts of sexual assault and sentenced to 6 months to a year in prison. However, there's no way of confirming whether this actually happened, as Parker has vehemently denied that he was involved, and the girl did commit suicide. And while I'm not going to let this tarnish my opinion of the film, I'm also not going to lie and say that these allegations have not royally screwed this film's Oscar chances, because it has. And it really sucks because this absolutely would have been a heavy hitter. But at the same time, I'm not giving any points to Nate Parker, because if he did actually do this, then that just makes him a giant scumbag. Overall, I'm giving this movie 8 out of 10 stars. I certainly hope that in 100 years, this becomes the new Birth of a Nation that people remember, not the bullshit 1915 D.W. Griffith racist fest. It's pretty funny because even though they're 100 years apart, both of Birth of a Nation are going to be seriously tarred, with the first one back in 1915 being extremely, incredibly racist and not really holding up to today, even though it was the first full-length feature film, whereas this Birth of a Nation is extremely controversial because of the rape allegations surrounding it. You just can't make a Birth of a Nation movie without there being some sort of a controversy. Well, that's it. That is my official review for The Birth of a Nation. What did you guys think? Do you think that I'm an asshole for liking this movie? That's fine. Whatever you think, comment below. Let me know. Tweet me. Movie Nerd Review. Website, movienerdreviews.com. That's it. I'll see you guys next time.